While these are not direct competitors, their main goals are quite similar. So today I want to see if a loaded Subaru punches above its weight, or if the Volvo can justify its cost. If you enjoy fun, detailed car content without fluff, consider subscribing and hitting the bell for notifications. Thank you. Despite the large price difference, these are among the cheapest wagons that you can buy in the US. Today I'm going to focus more on the loaded XT model Outbacks, which will cost you around $40,000 or $43,000. The V60 Cross Country will begin about 10 grand north of that, and if you lose all control, you can spec it above 60 grand like what I have here. These are about the most luxurious configurations of each. In an effort to survive, most wagons in North America have adopted a Pacific Northwest personality, which means added body cladding and increased ground clearance. The Volvo is going to be right there around 8.1 inches. The Outback is lifted to 8.7 and up to 9.5 if you get the Wilderness trim. Briefly, I'd like to thank Royal on the Eastside and Bloomington, Indiana for letting me test drive the Outbacks for today's review. The staff are friendly, they never go above MSRP, and they pack a diverse inventory. Check them out and tell them thanks for me. Style is all subjective, but I think the Volvo will age very well with its sharp yet subtle lines. And while I'm fine with the Subaru's look, especially with the brushed aluminum accents that you get on the touring trim, compared to the Volvo, the aesthetic is more busy than a Miami bail bondsman. As far as features go, these are more comparable than you would think. On every Outback, you're actually going to have LED steering responsive headlights. The same goes with the Volvo. All turbo Outbacks and cross countries have fog lights. But the Volvo wins when it comes to avoiding parking lot headaches, because all of them have parking sensors and a 360 view camera too, something that is not available with the Outback. You can just get a front camera, and the resolution is also subpar. Now, each car does have a few notable quirks. For the Outback, you do have very helpful deployable crossbars and body cladding that Subaru says looks like a boot. The Volvo is going to have pressure washers that pop out of the bumper and spray the headlight if you get the climate package, and it comes with rain sensing windshield wipers, something you can't get on the Subi, but both of these in turbocharged form will have proximity unlock and lock and a power rear tailgate. The Volvo's is hands-free. For people living near dystopian roads, the V60 Cross Country can be had with 18-inch wheels on the Plus trim, but the Outback will have more sidewall. The Subi also handily wins on cargo capacity. The Outback is a little wider, a little longer, and much taller. The Volvo also lacks cargo-mounted seat releases. The only leg up I can really think of is the ski pass-through that you'll get. Though to give the Swede credit, it is shaped well, and it does still offer plenty of practicality for its size. Both of these, with the seats folded down, have enough space for you to camp out of, and you'll get a panoramic sunroof to enjoy that with the Volvo, something you can't get with the Outback. The interior of the Subaru Outback is soft, big, easygoing, but let down by the technology, something that the Volvo also struggles with. So the materials in here, where it matters, are soft touch. You're going to have stitching throughout that will change colors depending on which trim you get. They do utilize some glossy black plastic, but I'm glad that the steering wheel buttons here are matte finished so they don't look too dirty and gross. And it's comfortable. These seats are magnificent. And on the driver's side, you do have a thigh extension, which is really helpful. I'm 6'3", and I have great support in here as a result. And I like that the cushioning in most areas is plush. This would be a great vehicle to road trip in. It also comes packed with many features for, again, that $40,000 price point. You can expect things like heated front seats, leather, a 12-speaker Harman Kardon sound system that offers plenty of power, and with this well-insulated cabin, also sounds pretty crisp. I'm satisfied with it. You'll have a heated steering wheel, ventilated seats here with the Touring. A wireless charger is available. Now, a unique feature that you'll find on the most opulent Outbacks will be a facial recognition system, which both monitors to see if you're falling asleep or not paying attention, but also knows who's in the driver's seat and can then adjust to your memory settings. Equally as important as features with a wagon is storage, and we do have plenty of that here in the Outback. It's not excessive, but I do like the little grippy shelf there, the wireless charger pocket, and the reasonable door card cubbies too. Where the Outback stumbles is with its infotainment. All XT models will have this dim, relatively slow to respond 11.6-inch display that packs just an acceptable resolution. It's more simple to use than what's in the Volvo, and I like that Subaru leaves the volume and tune dials and retains buttons for some important HVAC controls, but it already feels dated. Thankfully, it has wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto standard. No virtual gauge cluster like what you'll find standard in the Volvo is available. Now, sitting behind myself in a still comfortable position, I have more than enough space in the rear seat, and I also have great support, just enough headroom, rear console vents, and USB ports. If you're shopping between these two, disregarding the price, if you really need a family vehicle, the Outback makes a very strong case for itself. As a luxury car should, this takes materials and design to a higher degree than the Outback, but it still loses in some important areas. One key advantage is the sound system. On the Plus, you'll have 10 speakers with a great 14-speaker Harman Kardon unit available that sounds more crisp and powerful than that of the Outback. The Bowers & Wilkins is on another level, and it should be for the price. You feel notes that you flat out didn't know were there. This is phenomenal and a standout feature. But going back to the materials, on the Ultimate trim, you'll have more stitching, a little bit more soft touch on the dashboard. I wish that they padded the center tunnel like they do in the Outback. This also feels just a lot more compact than the Subi, and they do use a fair amount of glossy black plastic in areas that you're actually going to be touching a lot. Still, there are some nice clicky vents and wood trim and some sharp, nice lines that do help justify its upscale price. Plus, it being a Volvo, you know that there's got to be some weird bits. So we have a crystal shifter here on the Ultimate trim that lights up at night, super cool. A center-mounted start-stop switch and some really nice feeling door handles. This also has all of the same premium features that I talked about with the Outback, though wireless charger is nowhere to be found, but you do add a head-up display for the Ultimate, folding rear headrests at the touch of a virtual button, and that same thigh extension thing for the seats, which I need to talk about because these are very highly adjustable. In fact, with the Ultimate trim seats, you can adjust the bolstering. I think the Plus may actually be more comfortable just because the cushioning is a little bit softer and more plush, but these are still very well contoured to my body. However, the back seat of the Volvo falls short of the high standards set by the Subaru. I mean, I can fit back there, which is good. It would be acceptable for someone who uses their back seat a lot, but getting back there is a little bit more difficult, and the space is just notably more compromised. You have less support. The advantage comes from having quad zone climate control here with the Ultimate trim, and you have your own control center in the rear. A low point for this interior is definitely the infotainment system. It's laid out in a way that's more confusing. Still doesn't have wireless Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and the resolution is really beginning to lag behind a lot of vehicles. Though the brightness and response time are ahead of the Subaru. Storage-wise, this has big door cards, a lot of storage here in the center area, but not a whole lot else to speak of. Behind the wheel of the V60 Cross Country, you have a mostly luxurious experience. You're going to have a 2-liter turbocharged inline-4, but this is a mild hybrid. And does that improve response? Does it make it more smooth? Well, not in the traditional sense. It has auto stop start, which outside of having a funny acronym is usually complained about. Here it is mostly seamless. If you do jump quickly from the brake to the gas, you will feel it, but for the most part, it's unobtrusive. You will have a very smooth 8-speed automatic that does a good job of working in the background. Sometimes it takes a second to figure out what it wants to do. However, it usually picks the right gear. It does lose some of its refinement when under hard acceleration. To help put all 247 horsepower and 258 pound-feet of torque to the ground, we have a Haldex all-wheel drive system. This means that it is all-wheel drive only when it decides it needs to be. It's constantly monitoring slip, incline, weather to make sure that it's sending power to the rear wheels when it needs to be, and it does do a pretty good job at reacting fast. But the Subaru takes a clear advantage because that has proper full-time all-wheel drive. Yes, it will reside around a 60-40 split front rear, but it can send a lot more than 50% to the rear axle when it needs to. Both of these have capable off-road modes, and the cross-country should be able to trudge through most of what the non-wilderness Outbacks can handle, so long as you don't crunch the nose. But now let's test out its front bias with a quick 0 to 60. So that's a traditional torque converter there. Provides pretty good off-the-line grunt. It sent power to the rear immediately, no actual slip needed, and provided an okay time. We got to 60 in 6.5 seconds, which for a family hauling wagon is okay. The low-end torque and limited turbo lag helps grant good passing power, but there are more effortless powertrains that can be had for the money. This does have an advantage though with the engine sound and the transmission. It just has more of a refined tone to it. Pulling up to highway speed, half throttle, transmission knows that it needs to downshift. 8-speed doing its job pretty well. At 65 miles per hour, we're revving about 1800 RPM. I think that this has present wind noise, especially here on a somewhat windy day. Tire noise is less perceivable. Now, compared to most mainstream SUVs, you'll find this to be a little more serene, as you would hope. Over an abysmal road, the V60 Cross Country is a very tolerable car, but not exactly a go-to for me. So the cabin is well insulated from smaller imperfections. So this does have a weird rear suspension, just like the S60. It actually uses a torsional leaf spring, and it's still smooth over most things. It's just not as forgiving over the medium to larger imperfections as what I would really like from a car like this, but its relative stiffness does give it an advantage in other areas. Still kind of floats over some of those undulations, but it feels very sure-footed. And when you combine that with steering that has little vagueness on center, it's not fast overall and it is numb, but ultimately it feels a little bit more direct, especially if you turn on the steering feel firm slider. And that is the only sort of function that you can tweak here. Just handles really well for this sort of off-roadish vehicle. When it comes to visibility, this is easy to see out of. Now, the first thing you notice in the Outback is that you sit up higher. The windows are a little bit bigger. I think there's a touch more visibility in here. Overall, Subarus tend to be really good at that. Another thing that's hugely different is the powertrain. Here you're going to have a 2.4 liter turbocharged direct injected Boxer 4. This has no hybrid tech whatsoever, and it comes hooked up to a continuously variable transmission. Neither of these are super quick to react. The 8-speed in the Volvo is going to be more linear. It feels more natural. This is more just getting the job done. You do get some of that rubber band effect, but then it really does take off. While smooth off the line, it feels no quicker than the naturally aspirated Outback. Today I'm actually driving an XT model. As I wanted to make this apples to apples, this one has 9,000 miles on it, as the car I was standing next to earlier didn't have this motor. Now, all that said, let's give this a proper acceleration test. Super slow off the line. Pulls. There's a huge difference in initial grunt, but then this pulls definitively harder. This got to 60 in 5.7 seconds, and let's remember, this runs on regular fuel all day. That needs premium. They achieve a similar fuel mileage rating, though the Outback XT is rated to tow 1,500 pounds more than the V60 Cross Country. So when it comes to powertrains, the Volvo is more luxurious. It's got a more natural feeling delivery with better low speed performance, but the Outback is very smooth and quicker. Another downside to this powertrain is going to be the turbo CVT combo. There's going to be a little bit of lag from both of them, but it does easily bring you up to highway speeds. We're doing 65 miles per hour. And tire noise, maybe that's a little bit more toned down than the Volvo, but I will say that wind noise does seem more pronounced. So overall, I think the Volvo may earn a slight win, but this is pretty good considering it tops out in the low 40s. If you live around bone-bruising roads, the Outback is a great partner. I think they handle roughly the same over the smaller imperfections, but once they're more consistent, I think this comes off just a hair less busy. Throw in larger potholes and bigger obstructions, and the difference between the two becomes even more noticeable. This is just a softer car. Though something I will say, the V60 has a few thousand miles. This only has 9,000 miles. I'm definitely hearing more noises from like the interior plastics than in the Volvo. I think that just had more solid construction. That too is not impeccable, but I should note that when discussing why you would spend $10, $15, maybe $20,000 more to get a Volvo. The Subaru does come with a fairly quick steering rack, but it is just a little bit more floaty than the Volvo, and as a result feels cheaper, maybe a little less direct. There's also notably more body motion to it. The flat 4 does help it reduce the center of gravity, which means they don't need to spring it firm to reach a good level of control. And it is as confident feeling as the Volvo. You just simultaneously have more leaning to it, so this doesn't feel quite as capable. More importantly, each are safe family rides. These seem to perform well in crash tests, especially the V60, which has a crazy strong roof, but it has yet to undergo the updated testing. Also, both of these will have a full active driving suite as standard, your adaptive cruise, lane centering, autonomous braking, and all of your higher trim Outbacks will have blind spot monitoring standard too. Now for reliability. The V60 is rare, so I'm basing this off of the mechanically similar S60. That seems to be devoid of major powertrain problems, but quality control issues are prevalent. They are mostly infotainment or electrical related. High-speed vibrations were problems for some as well, and brake qualms aren't unheard of either. Mild hybrid battery drain hasn't been a big concern with the S60 like it has been with some other Volvos. The Outback will add more peace of mind, but it isn't perfect. There was a decent sized recall on the powertrain control module with the XT models in particular that was causing transmission problems. With that fixed, the thing that's actually the most common that people run into is easily cracking windshields and buggy infotainment, though other miscellaneous issues do exist, just by far much cheaper to maintain, especially when we consider phenomenal resale value compared to the Volvo. But you also need to keep in mind, and this is going to lead me to the conclusion here, buying a luxury car almost never has a value proposition attached to it. And whether that's worth it depends a lot on who you are, but I think in the case of the Volvo, it's a pretty small niche. The Outback is quicker, more practical, more comfortable on a bad road, a little more capable off-road, while costing less up front and much less over time. However, the V60 Cross Country pulls ahead in mostly immeasurable ways. It does handle better than the Subaru, but I care more about the understated style inside and out, the powertrain refinement, the quality, the sound systems, and all of the little details that give the Volvo a tangible wow factor, on top of it being a well-rounded family vehicle. It's not a sporty car to drive, but I always look forward to my time with it, and I constantly turn around after parking. When it comes to mainstream family transportation, practicality, comfort, and value reign supreme, and the Outback has that on lock. When it comes to oddball luxury rides, a car must have a strong emotional appeal, and the V60 Cross Country does. You already know which one earns my broad recommendation. If I had to pretend like I could afford the Volvo, I'd probably still go with the Outback for its comfort, less frustrating tech, and dependability. Your values may differ from mine, but even considering my sensible priorities, I know I'd still have second thoughts if I passed up on the Volvo. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, then leave a like to help me make a fool of the YouTube algorithm. Subscribe and hit the bell for more. Follow me on Patreon for an additional podcast, and I'll catch you in the next one.